But the interesting part of this front page is that there's God on the very left side top. And that God is so small and so hidden. That is basically the whole idea. You can't make God visible. But it was understood as that man, that he made man as his own, after his own image. And that is just something that is belonging to the arrogance of man anyway, because he made everything after his own image. The rocks, the mountains, the trees, the birds, the fishes, everything. I mean, if you would be able to listen to a sheep and ask him, where do you come from? And he would say, come from God, you know, and then his God would be having a very different shape. Yeah. But we have to accept that. We have to now drop our arrogance a little bit, if we could. You know, it makes you much richer. If you just accept more than that, you can see it's split in half. This is the vertical bar of the cross, also from the earth. You can see that there's in the middle of this, the earth was a sphere with a cross in it, not a long bottom and not a short top of the cross, but the whole thing was crossed in the middle. And that has to do with creating a ball, creating the four directions. So this direction, the previous one, when you saw my fishes, had a horizontal one, because I was more interested in the message that we people need to know, you know, and it's not spiritual, it is practical. You know, it has a bar in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different, it's not a triptych, but it's just a little painting in two little paintings made into two paintings. So it has two meanings, the left side, the right side, things like that. But it is the book of Genesis in the beginning, and they say that this is the third day when he created light.
Because So Victor, where is this painting now? And I imagine you can't see this because this is behind where the painting. So where
well,
is this painting now?
I think the panels do swing, but you're not allowed to touch them.
Oh, sure.
So they're not totally horizontally or totally flat, two-dimensionally open. They are a little angle, I think, in the Prado in Madrid.
Okay.
It ended up all the way in Spain because there was this Spanish war going on in the time that he painted it. And so the soldiers took it away and brought it to the king of Spain.
Wow.
Yeah. It belonged to the king of Orange, you know.
Well, let's open this painting up. Just generally orienting folks to this painting who are seeing it for the first time. I'm trying to look at it with new eyes as well. There's a lot going on. There's a whole lot going on. And we certainly see three panels that you were talking about previously. And you were saying the first panel being kind of the beginning or the creation or birth, the middle panel being life, and the third panel being a hell or a cesspit or, you know, some sort of destruction. So I'm certainly seeing that, and I'm seeing lots and lots of forms, animal forms, people forms, also fantastical surrealistic stuff going on here. So a lot to look at, and I think
you can get lost for hours.
Yeah, and you really can, which I think is also so great, as I was talking about earlier with this painting, because there is so much going on at so many different layers throughout it. Why not spend the time with this painting? Why not, you know, let it work on you? Because it's got these elements that we're going to get into that speak to transformation, that speak to sort of our inner worlds. But, you know, one of the first things I think to talk about is actually about his painting process, that you can see as a painter, and perhaps we'll get into that a little bit. What is it about his style of painting that you're really drawn to?
Well, as an abstract painter, I'm very interested in the great rhythms that he has. If you can zoom in, and I'm going to ask you this, behind the pink tower of the middle panel,
This one?
yeah, and you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, you come to a few animals,
Oh,
and then
wow.
you come to people. And the way, if you go closer and closer to the people that are just behind this, on the left side, yeah, okay, there, yes. Look at, make it larger and larger and larger, and see how he painted those people.
Oh, wow. Let's. I'm gonna go back again. So you really
Yeah,
see their forms here. They look like people. They're simple, but they look really like people. And then when you come in closely, that is
you
just.
can see his rhythm, his way of illustrating in one sense, but in the other sense, the way he works with light that catches the body, and that's enough to suggest with simple colors. Of course, there's a lot of damage in the blue. That's the underpainting, where the yellow's chipped off of the green grass.
What
But you
are all
can go.
these? What are all these cracks, by the way, Victor?
They're just because it's a wood panel and it shrinks and it expands and it shrinks and it expands. You can't stop that.
Okay.
It's the painting, the craquelé, they call it, the cracking of all surfaces of old paintings. It happens to almost all paintings on linen also. Anything that's alive has cracks in them. So if you go further to the left of this group, and you see all these lovely little animals and the way, then there's these other people, their head are light, and then behind it is all in dark, other people. They
Oh.
don't get light. Then you go behind the bush, further left, further left, further left. There's a whole group coming over the hill, behind the hill, and they're coming out, and they're part of this whole group of people that are walking. But the way he paints it is astonishing, because it's enough.
Yeah.
It's suggestive. And this comes, my dear, as transformation. There's a transformation process going on that goes into your mind. You know that they're people, and you accept them, and you find them, and you're satisfied with them. You see these little animals, you see the trees have little dots on them. You can see that they are all dome-shaped, which is very important for creation, because the whole first painting, when you closed it, you saw that God made the dome,
Yeah.
which he called the heavenly dome. And it's basically underneath the dome that we are living. And the dome is very important because it's repetition from the dome in our arches of the feet, the dome in our perineum, the dome in our diaphragm, the dome in our upper chest, the dome in our upper palate that everybody can feel with their tongue, and then the dome in your cranium, your upper skull. And then it goes out into the next dome of the roof under which you live, and then into the sky, which is the big dome. But every tree you look around in nature will have some sort of dome shape. Some are sharper, some are more round. But the dome is also what the Genesis says, that he gave mankind dominion over nature. And this is the biggest mistake that we made, as translating it into dominion instead of respecting nature and protecting nature. And that's where I call letting the fish go. Don't hold it on until it's dead.
Sure.
Give it its life, protect it. keep the water clean if you can, clean enough for the fish to live in, and not too clean to die from poverty of no food left. So there is something that is found in the word kingdom, and that's the dome of the king. That is the edges of the land that he knows. And small kings have small kingdoms, and then they come on the bigger kingdoms. But that is the important part, is that it's a dominion that is actually a protective field that we all have. And it's not only inside of us, but we have a power to go beyond ourselves to protect nature. Mm. Now, this is what we are missing these days.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, for sure.
Yeah. And that is what Hieronymus Bosch says. If you go into the left painting, you see an amazing abstraction of birds there on the ground. They're all picking away there, yes. And if you enlarge that, you can see how he's an embroiderer of color. And it's enough to suggest a few birds that they're birds, but then the different colors make this depth that you go into a whole flock of birds that are there, and then they fly away, and then they go around. And, it's amazing what he does.
I'm really, really fascinated with what you called transformation, and I think I've as just someone who's come across these impressionistic works before, Claude Monet and other people, which I'm really, this is not my field. I'm always fascinated by, it's almost a sorcery. It's almost it's a subtle, it's certainly creativity and art and all of that, but it's also, it's a type of magic. And maybe all art is like this, and maybe you have a sense of that, but but doing something
I like
to
enlarge these things so big that you can see that it becomes a web, it becomes material, it becomes like embroidery on a frame of birds, and it's amazing.
Well, I mean,
it's abstract art, but you don't experience. It's transformed from abstraction into sudden figurative power, but you can go back and forth into it. And that's the elevator of our consciousness. We can understand it on the level that we recognize, and then we go deeper and lose that form and lose ourselves in it. So it's great that how he worked.
What's so interesting to me is that he's got very very clear forms, like these creatures here, mixed in with abstractions. Here, I mean, he's got a whole range of skill sets that he's using, and I'm always looking at the forms in this painting. I've never looked at these little things on the side, and you're right, there's just single paint strokes here, and he's created a flock of birds. That's fascinating.
And then when you go, now you can see something that happens. This Hieronymus Bosch, he goes into mountains, and then that blue mountain where your thing is he says, no, the mountain is also a being. So he puts a cloak on it.
Here.
He dresses the mountain as a cloak. And you can see the folded hands. If you go down from the birds, there's a darker stuff that he.
In here.
There's hands crossing his belly.
Oh, here, sure, right here.
Yeah.
And
so it's interesting that it is kind of a meditating mountain, and that's what you feel when you meditate. You become a mountain,
absolutely,
a timeless mountain, and it's amazing.
I mean, Victor, these look like the classic Theravada Buddhist hand in meditation
Yeah,
almost like
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
I don't think he would have been
Well,
in touch
you
with.
know, we get everything because we come to that when we talk about Jesus and the crucifixion and how to deal with that. And on the right hand side, you see these two wheels that could be a rolling mountain. And I think that there's some water running out of it, but he pierces it with a big dead stick. But in the end, the stick has a moon on it. It's kind of alive still and has little leaves on it. But out of that division of these two things that were brought together now comes a whole new forest. So it's not dead wood anymore. It gets life. So I can think that this is the separation of the two forces of your left and your right body.
Mm.
And you're pierced through with a sharp thing. That is something that he must have been really suffering from the stories of Jesus, how he was treated with nails through his arms and nails through his hands and nails through his feet, and then crucified on dead wood. And then out of that, he rises again. The wood rises, it gets new life, and water streams from in between. There's things that you do as an artist. You can lose yourself. You can get into a painting and think like, what am I doing? And then when you step out, you can say, oh, it actually has a deeper meaning. And you can read the meaning. And I don't know if he did, but there is something, you know, he must have been rather surrealistic in his approach of life. That's why he has all these weird branches with berries on them that has a tremendous size. If they would be real, they would be so heavy,
You know,
you know?
it's certainly surrealism going on here from what I know about surrealism. But what's interesting, unlike, Dali or someone like that, it is very natural and symbolic rather than um, just sort of novelty or just sort of
Yeah.
just the brain doing something. There was some sorts of, and maybe I don't know enough about Dali to say what he was doing or what, but
No, no,
it
no.
seems, what you're saying here is in just this little 1/1000th of this painting, there is deep meaning that is put into here. So using the surrealistic ideas to actually communicate some meaning. So it sounds like to me one of the things you love about Hieronymus Bosch is that he is leaving all of these signs of of deeper meaning and metaphor and transformation within his painting. I mean, it's all like little Easter eggs that we can find in here, and it's almost
Yeah.
like everything in the painting has got some sort of meaning to it. Um, there was clearly there was thought about putting this
Yeah.
cloak or jacket around this mountain, and we can only interpret what that might be. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a fascinating thing that he's
So
doing.
this is about the transformational processes, and he built his mountains. I mean, Holland didn't have much mountains. He never traveled out of Sertogenbos, they tell me. I don't know. But he did have books, and people who traveled did write books, and they wrote the animals. And so he loads them up with whatever he can find, I think, once he's
Yeah.
stepping back. Like this is what you do when you're painting. You lose yourself. You get into a deeper state of being. Something bubbles up, and something. Uh, then you step back and you see something, and you say, "Well, if I make it into this and make it that, it becomes more clear." And sometimes you can see that in this mountain, it has a pink sunny owl on top of this mountain, but the mouth of this mountain, I'm going to go to the left, to the
Oh,
left, to the left,
oh, this
where
one.
is that a smiling monster, like
This
beak.
one.
No, 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 no. This blue
Oh,
mountain with the birds on it.
oh
There's
yeah,
like an open mouth.
yeah.
There's a bird in there, and it's mossy plants, it's water. I don't know what it is, but he makes it into one eye that looks like a little bit like an aggressive monster, but then on top of that mountain stands a pale pinkish golden owl that looks down on it all.
Oh, here?
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Good
it's
eye.
hardly visible. And there's some birds in the sky that are hardly visible.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
and the amazing strokes that he uses, it's really very thinly applied, watery tempera, egg tempera that is amazing the way he does. But then he brings suddenly an amazing tree out of this left thing that goes up and up and up and up and up. And, you know,
Victor,
very light.
do you think there's any story that there are three mountains here, and are they stages of something? I don't know. Just seeing that makes me think there's
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to go too deeply into a
yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
because as an artist, you create a sphere, an atmosphere. These
Mm.
are far away mountains. There's one high peak at the left where the birds are flying. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a higher mountain. And then on the left hand side is a hill type of mountain. There's lots of, it's like mountainous area, and then he plays around and creates a mountain out of discs and balls and squares and things like that in an egg form that is split open in one side, and birds are going in and birds are going out and around. It's basically, birds are very important as a uh, as a creating, in the creating. God created the land, he created the birds.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole panel on the left is basically a morning glory.
Mm.
So it's the morning atmosphere. It's pink, Jesus, and a pink fountain of life. And those things are all interesting, I think.
Well, now that I'm seeing Jesus, I'm reminded. Let's just talk briefly about his style versus some other people's, so that
Yeah, Leonardo da
Yeah,
Vinci said, I rather see Jesus than the Mona Lisa.
right.
So I asked you to put them together because the way he painted Jesus is so warm, and it's such a lovely guy that it's so different from Mona Lisa, who is kind of a like cooler, and the strokes of Mona Lisa are also, it's all very clever work, but I think that I feel more sympathetic towards Jesus,
Yeah, and
the
you can
warmth.
see there's so much more. I don't know. I mean, it looks like almost more like. I don't want to say real skin, but it kind of looks almost like more real skin. I mean, there's
There's
a
more blood flow, yes.
yeah, and
And,
hers
and in
is
this, the interesting part in this painting is that the Mona Lisa looks more like Eve and like Adam in her paleness, in
mm,
her yellowness,
yeah.
like almost bloodless. And so it looks rather cool. Whereas Jesus is the warm-hearted
Hmm.
person you would like to take out on your dinner appointment. Whereas Mona Lisa, you would like to, you would stop eating when you see her looking at you.
I would like to go out to dinner with either of them, for sure.
Okay.
I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they'd have a lot to say. I feel like Mona Lisa's had so much to say for years, and no one knows what she's trying to say.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, there's this like, I mean, whoops. There's all this there's
yeah.
this beautiful glow to her, and that's its own style and its own thing, and that gives that painting a it's I mean, it's so famous for that softness that it has there, and what it says. But there is a reality to Bosch's painting here. I mean, he looks like he's, I don't know, the eye gaze looks like he's engaging with you. I mean, Mona Lisa's is classically engaging
Also,
too, but I
yeah,
mean, I don't know. There's something about the whites and the black of his eye that really seem like it's more there and
yeah.
alive to me. So
Well, the
interesting.
interesting part is that according to some X-ray pictures of this painting, they found out that he had originally painted God in the original way that God was painted in those days, looking down on and connecting with Adam and not connecting uh, with Eve at all, except that he's holding her hand, but her wrist. I mean, it's like a doctor checking her pulse.
Oh, let me get back to the painting so we can look at that. Um, yes, this is what you're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's two people who are very pale and they're just brought to life, basically. But Jesus is dressed in the morning glory color of sunrise,
Mm.
and everything is soft in it. And the idea is basically totally different from the way they depicted always God taking Eve out of Adam's side, out of his rib cage, and that was the birth. No, he's just waking up and seeing that, but his feet are crossed together and they touch Jesus' foot.
Yeah.
And
What do you think?
from there goes this stream up of his dress, of his pink dress, and it goes around and goes into the hand of Jesus and into the body of Eve, who's kind of looking down and being with the earth and being very shy. Whereas Adam has a little blush on his cheek, but he's looking very much, in my opinion, to Jesus, and he's able to see Eve, but he's basically fascinated to this guy, you know. And I can imagine that everybody who would see Jesus for the first time is a little thrown back by this warmness, this spiritual presence.
Mm.
He's stepping on the feet in the same way that I try to meditate for a long time in bed, lying down, having my right foot over my left foot.
Mm.
And then I cross my left hand and my right hand either behind my head or over my heart area, or diaphragm area. And it's kind of like the reason why when you meditate, you sit in lotus position and you have your hands crossed, like you said, palm in palm.
Mm.
It's basically to make Ida and Pingala, the left and the right side, come together and join back into the life force, which is called Susumna. So you have Ida and Pingala and Susumna. Now, if they are not crossed, they would be a little bit more of the Susumna living energy spreading out into the life-giving force that builds the body.
Mm.
We have to reconnect with that beginning. That is the whole book of Genesis. Who are we? Why are we here? What are we doing? Is a reconnection to the earth and to the life energy. And Jesus here standing for that life energy itself. He's the Susumna between Ida and Pingala.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, you have that drawing that would be good to share here. This is your drawing of that
Yeah,
very
I
panel.
tried to explain to my friend Penny to say, listen, this is actually tantric yoga. It has nothing to do with the sexuality, but it's to do with the connection and to reach a higher state of your being and that is basically the same way that then later on they killed Jesus, having his right foot over his left foot, jamming a nail through it, and then left hand and right hand and jamming a nail to the palms, which most people say you can't do that because it would tear the whole hand apart with the weight of the body. But it's a symbolic killing these chakras, these domes, the dome of your feet and the dome of your hands. So here we go, instead of God dome, it becomes God damn. So you damn this life energy, and it's connected to these two halves of the mountain, these two discs with this thing through it, and then Jesus is still the life energy that flows between those two discs out, and they grow new trees. The life energy is not killed, except for in the right hand side, the hell, where these two discs become the two ears, again pierced through by an arrow, and then a knife cutting right through the Sushumna in the hell, the last panel. Yeah, here. There you have the two ears, like the two mountains, and again the arrow going through it, and then this knife cutting through the, and that is like the bitterness that Hieronymus Bosch felt. The whole painting is full of thorns and full of sharp things that pierce.
Yeah.
He says man wants to pain, wants to pierce things. They're not very kind to each other. There's always these arrows and piercing lancets and things like that.
Wow. So
in the ear, you see kind of a devilish person carrying a long stick with a sponge on it. And it's a little bit like what they did to Jesus to make his thirst less. After they pierced his ribs, they gave him some acidity, some acid juice to drink, vinegar.
Yeah.
So it's the bitterness of man, and Hieronymus Bosch painted, besides this, also other panels of Jesus being mocked and the crown of thorns and things like that. So Jesus was always,
Well, I'm just
Christ
seeing...
carrying the cross is another one, and then Christ being mocked. And he was always very busy with Christ. So he's very interested in Christ. Now here, I go a little further. In the tree of good and bad, the tree of division, the tree of life behind Adam, there's a plant that grows there that makes me very much think, and that's winding all around this tree of life. There's no real fruit. There's fruit on the floor, but it's not from that tree. There are some fruits that look a little bit like grapes, but they're like small berries with little white dots underneath. So they're fantasy grapes. But the pennies that I see here is the Judas penny. You know, it's a plant that's called in Holland the Judas penny. The coins that Judas was paid with for betraying Christ. So I'm thinking that he stepped back and he said, okay, this guy, Adam, got really thrilled by connecting with me, and they became a little, what is this person doing between me and Eve? This is my wife. I should have him out of the way. And so I think that he is he's reincarnated as Judas later, Adam, to betray Christ. And so it's about Christ's betrayal a lot, this. And if you go a little higher in this painting, you see the fountain above Jesus, the fountain of life that
It's
was,
directly above Jesus too, in the same
yeah,
color.
and
Color. Yeah.
same color, same direction, same vertical upgoing force. And it is very much like the book of Genesis, that there's this fountain that gives life back from the water and back into the water to bless the water to create life.
Mm.
So the bottom one is a ball that's standing in earth, in black earth, very black earth.
Mm.
But earth is rich with jewels
Oh
and
yeah.
pearls. And so there's a richness in that blackness. But there's also tubes in there,
Oh yeah.
glass tubes, which is
Strange.
the time of alchemy that was really popular in those days, and that tried to use these tubes to create gold out of lead, and also the philosopher's stone to have the power over life and death. So you wouldn't die when you finally get the philosopher's stone out of mercury. Now, the interesting part of the sun, if you come close to the sun, you see a black hole in there. Now, why on Earth is a black hole in those days in a sun disk?
Yeah, they didn't know about black holes then.
No, they
For
didn't
sure.
know, but they're interested in black holes, and there's an owl in there looking out. And the owl is basically a bird that is comfortable in the darkness, can see in the darkness, can hear in the darkness, can fly without sound in the darkness. And you know, this is basically saying that, okay, there's the sun, but the sun has a dark hole in it, and you have to learn to connect. You have to be the owl too, to understand how much more richness is in this darkness. You can see it in the earth, but in the darkness, this cycle of the sun. The sun has many, many, many balls around it, which is a repetition of 1,000 suns. It's the universal depiction. Also, it has circles on its surface.
In it, yeah.
Millions of suns on it. So this is basically cursor, you say, I think. Something that you see later in Mandelbrot's when he comes with a theory that shapes have fractional dimensions, with shapes make out of parts too similar to the whole form. So it's like the whole form
macrocosm.
Is the microcosm in the macrocosm. And so that's what he's interested in. This sun gives birth to plants, to two plants with discs on them, and birds are sitting all around it. And then on top of that are several, again, Mandelbrot type of moons, one moon, and it has little moons inside the moon.
Is this
and
here?
the moon, a little higher, go a little lower,
Sorry. Oh, I see the little.
there's it almost looks like a face, but they're all curled up moons, moon leaves that suggest the moon. And also they have these sharp moons inside that create on the edges that create, and then it goes into an egg shape. Now this is interesting, that the sun and the moon together create an egg, and it has like not one, but it has 3 eggs on it to see, maybe 4 in reality. We can't see around the back, but there is definitely a threesome that he depicts. And that egg goes up and up and up, and out of becomes fountain. But there also, again, things are pierced through it. There's all the
Yeah.
piercing through.
Here. Yep.
Why is there always this piercing through?
Here too. Here too.
And that's basically breaking through, transforming what is inside, and then spouting out as water, as life. So there's the life transforming forms that are created out of the life transforming energy. Then that goes into leaves again, breaking open in nature and getting a DNA whirl to go higher up into another moon that very on top with little suns on the moon this time, and bursting open, piercing higher and higher and higher, flowering.
I mean, this one, this one little motif in here has so much in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it has so much in it, from the muck and the tubes and the black hole and the sun and microcosm, macrocosm, the sun birthing moons and egg shapes and life and DNA and piercing through. Like, there is so much going on, and we haven't even looked at the people in this painting yet. This is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the promise of the Genesis, and then the middle panel is, the interesting part is that God divides on the third day. He divides the light from the darkness. And so then he creates day and night. But the interesting part for meditation and for yoga practice is the sunrise and sundown areas, where you can be in the transformation, where the day becomes the night and the night becomes the day. And everything is in pink and in blues, and it goes, into a more state of midday, which is the middle panel.
Yeah.
It's basically midday, where everybody is celebrating and driving around and